So we are being recorded. I do not see any press at this time. There may be press. I don't invite them, but I also don't disinvite them as well. So what I'd like to do is just first do a simple introduction. And remember, this will be a fluid presentation. There will be materials to follow. Aha, I see another representative, Representative Running Wolf. Welcome. So with that, Superintendent Arntzen, I determined that we hold these caucuses, these discussions. It is an information flow from us in the agency, as well as we have post-secondary with OCHI here, as well as information that comes from you. We are here to support you in your processes as a legislator. We're here to support you in your education experience. And hopefully all the things that we learn together will be taken back to our communities to better our children. So this is our third time that we have deployed the Tribal Education Caucus, and we bring multiple stakeholders in education to you. We also set an agenda, and if you would like something on the agenda as legislators, please, we would be more than happy to use this time. I'm thinking of not more than a half hour of your time. And we will be in virtual world. And if things do change, then we can come back into person. I have arranged for room 350, if indeed that ever does happen. And again, we will be sending you out all of our materials, the agenda, as well as any recording that we have for your pleasure and your leisure. So with that, let's go ahead and invite our guests. So we have Ronnie, Joe Running Horse. Ronnie
Yes.
Joe Horse? Yes. Welcome. Could you share with us who you are?
My name is Ronnie Joe Horse, and I am the Deputy Director at Western Native Voice and Montana Native Voice.
Welcome. Welcome. Mr. Tessman.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Thanks for allowing us to participate. This is such a strong partnership. My name is Brock Tessman, Deputy Commissioner with the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Education. So I work with the Montana University system, and grateful to be able to work with Angela McLean, who I think will be our point person in most of these meetings, but I'm happy to learn and build new relationships through them. So thanks for having me again, and looking forward to a good meeting.
Thank you, Brock. And Angela.
Good afternoon, Madam Superintendent. Good to see everyone here. My name is Angela McLean, and I'm the Director of American Indian and Minority Achievement and K-12 Partnerships here at the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Ed.
Excellent. And I want to introduce Tara Dempsey. Tara Dempsey is our tech wizard. So if we have anything at all, she is the one that is going to help us maneuver our virtual world as we are. And then with that, Dr. Merkel, I'm going to turn this over to you. Thank you. If you would introduce our Rockstar staff, and then let's proceed. Thank you. All stay well.
Thank you, Elsie. My name is Julie Mergel, and I am the Senior Manager for School Innovation and Improvement, and I get the opportunity to supervise and manage our Indian education units. And there are three particular units. We've got the American Indian Student Achievement Unit. We have the Indian Education for All unit, and we have our Tribal Relations and Resiliency Unit, which is a new unit. And today we have two of our unit managers that are here to share with you as we go through that. But we have three distinct units that do three very distinct things. And IFA is our efforts for all students across Montana to really continue to increase our history and knowledge of our tribal nations, regardless of where you're at in our state. And then we have our American Indian Student Achievement Gap unit, which is really focusing on closing the opportunity gaps for our Native youth, whether they're in urban settings, on reservations, near reservations. And our director for that is Lana Running Wolf, and she'll be presenting with you today and really going deep into the American Indian Student Achievement Gap, which we do think is very different, and just want to call out from IFA. And so there's very distinguished focuses there. So Lana will be spending a lot of time kind of drilling down on the achievement gap on some high level data. And then with us also is Donnie Wetzel. Donnie's in a new role. Donnie's not new to us. Donnie's been in OPI for over 10 years and done some great work with our youth. And so Donnie is now working as the tribal liaison. And so he does a lot of tribal consultation and really bringing the tribe and the school districts and our agency together into the conversations about what we're working on with our students. So I'm going to turn it over to Lana. I'll pull up the screen and allow Lana and Donnie just to kind of quickly introduce themselves, and then let Lana really dig into the efforts that her team is engaging in for the American Indian Student Achievement. So Lana, go ahead and introduce yourself, and I'll go begin pulling up the slide.
Do you want me and Donnie to introduce ourselves before the slides? Is that what you said?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll show up a pretty picture of you at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Lana Running Wolf. I'm the director of American Indian Student Achievement Unit at the Montana Office of Public Instruction. For some reason, I feel my throat is, I think I've been talking too much today. I'm really happy that you're all here with us today. I'm excited to meet you all, especially in person. I am really excited about meeting with or working with the Indian Caucus and with the legislators in the education committees that are to help educate what we're doing at OPI for our American Indian students. We're doing some very innovative things, and between the 3 units that Julie had talked about, excuse me, you know, we're excited to share the work we have going moving forward. And so thank you for being here today. I look forward to the questions that we will have right after our quick presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Donnie Wetzel Jr. From Blackfeet country and pretty much all of Montana. So I am the new tribal family and community liaison, as well as the director of the Tribal Relations and Resiliency Unit. And I was able to share some of that with you earlier in the last month now, but I'm just honored to be able to visit with you guys. I'm honored for the opportunity that Julie and Superintendent Arnson is creating for us to speak with you directly, and look forward to guidance from all of you in the direction of where we need to take our schools for our American Indian students. So it's good to be here.
Thank you, Donnie and Lana. So we're going to really, as I mentioned, Lana's going to take us through some student data relevant to the American Indian Student Achievement. And then we're just going to take some time to have some conversation and open it up to all of you. So Lana, it's going to be all of yours. And when you are ready to move from one slide to the next, I'll just kind of naturally move. And you can also indicate to me as needed. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Julie. So I just wanted to say that this presentation, I know in our last visit that we did talk about this achievement gap data. I just wanted to bring it back again to because we do have new people on the session with us, and I just really believe that we need to start all on the same foundational level of where we're at right now, so that we can create a path on where we're going to go and how we're going to improve the achievement gap. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to just look at the last report that I gave, the gap report. We're going to look at an analysis of our gap funding and how districts are using it. And then I have some additional, sorry, I have some additional student achievement data that I'm gonna show from the ESSA Equity Promise. So first of all, we just got to look at where we're at right now. This data that I'm showing is our American Indian Student Achievement Gap Report for 2019. We haven't published it yet, only because of COVID. We don't have 2020 data yet. And so we're working on, alongside of our report, we want to be able to tell the story of what's going on and try to drill down deeper and try to find solutions to this data because, you know, we want to just do more than just present to you data. It's time that we move past admiring the problem and we start actually looking for solutions. So, but in order to do that, we all have to understand where we're at. This is the data from 2017 to 2019. And we measure Sbac, which is the Smarter Balanced Assessment for the state of Montana. This is 3rd grade through 8th grade. You can see the orange line is the non-native peers and the blue line is the Native American students. And this is our ELA proficiency rates from 2017 to 2019. I'm not going to go into a deep data conversation because I have a data team that does that, and but it doesn't take much to look at this graph right now and tell you a story of where we're at from 2017 and 2019. And I just want to add that if we went back and added more years, even in the previous years, you wouldn't see much of a difference in these trajectory lines. So here again, so this is the ELA, I'm sorry, that's the measurement of our English language proficiency. And this is the graph for our Sbac math proficiency rates. You can see 2017 to 2019, the blue line is our native students in Montana. Orange line is our non-native students. And you can continue to see that the gap is continuing for Native American students. I think it's interesting to note as well that when you look at the graph for the non-native students, there isn't much change there either. This is our science proficiency rates. We do a science assessment in 4th grade, and I believe, and you may correct me, Julie, if I'm wrong, but I believe in high school as well. So again, blue line is our native students, orange line is our non-native students. We are seeing a little bit of an increase from 2017 to 19. We would like that trajectory line to be a lot higher, but and then you can see with the non-native students that that the line is basically flatline. This is our ACT measurement. This is a measurement of 11th grade students in their college and career readiness. This is the ELA proficiency rates. Again, blue line is native, orange line is non-native. You can see that we are decreasing in our college and career readiness. And I think it's important to note, like, you see that our native students are starting around, are at 22% proficient for college and career readiness, and we're declining to 20%. This is our ACT math proficiency rates, our blue line with our native students. We're declining from 2017 to 19 for the college and career readiness in math. This is a measurement of our graduation rates. Yes, ELA is, just to clarify what ELA is, and I'm sorry for using those abbreviations without explaining them. That's the English language proficiency or English language arts. So this right here is our American Indian graduation rate. In 2017, you can see we had 80% for Native compared to the 92% for non-Native. In 2019, our graduation rates went down to 78%. And then non-Natives stayed about this, a little bit down, a little bit of a decrease. One thing that I will say about the graduation rate is what we're measuring here is the cohort of students that start out as a freshman and they graduate with their peers as seniors on time. And that's what the graduation rate is measuring.
Lana?
Yes.
Jonathan had a message in the chat. He was wondering if you can explain what ELA is.
Yeah, ELA is our English language arts proficiency. So that's our reading and our writing proficiency measurement. This is our dropout rates. For 2017, we were at 10%, a 10% dropout rate. In 2019, we decreased that dropout rate around 8%. This dropout rate is just measuring any student that drops out during the time that they're in high school. Or actually, I guess I should clarify that because I'm not sure, it might actually go back further, but Julie would be able to clarify that for me. So the dropout rate, we are seeing a decrease, which is good. We want to see that. And we still are looking at what's going on here and what's this story of the data for the dropout rate. What is that telling us? And so that's a research project that we're working on now. So when we looked at the achievement gap data, we were, a lot of questions. I'm sure you have the questions in your mind right now. We had a lot of questions about why we're not increasing, why we're not seeing improvement in the gap. And so one thing I do want to make sure that the legislators know is that Indian education for all, like Julie had mentioned, Indian education for all is not the same as American Indian Student Achievement. IFA, Indian Education for All, we call it IFA. IFA is established for all students across the state. American Indian Student Achievement Gap is designed, the unit is designed to look at the flow of money that comes from the state. And I don't know the Montana code annotated for that funding stream, but the direct line of that funding that goes to districts in order to decrease the gap. Our job at ASA, American Indian Student Achievement, our job is to go in and make sure that there's a streamlined process between how districts are using this funding and making sure that we are really finding ways that we're going to change this or decrease this gap and actually do away with the gap. So one of the questions we had after we looked at the data was, well, what are districts doing with the funding? How do we know where this funding is going as far as districts and how they're spending it in order to decrease the gap? So what we found, and actually I asked the data team of OPI to help do a research on that. We use the TEAMS report. The TEAMS report is where districts are reporting what they're using their funding for. And there are specific questions on the TEAMS report for OPI that tells us how they're spending their funding. There's a specific, or I think 3 specific questions that are related to the American Indian Student Achievement Gap funding. And I'm going to just say gap funding from now on so you all know what I'm talking about. So I asked the research team to please do a research, help us do some research on how the districts are spending this money. So what we did is we went in and we found that 29% using this TEAMS data, 29% of the responses on the data report were actually qualified under ASA expenditures. Less than 23% of the respondents actually answered the questions on the report. And then some of the schools seem to be reporting expenditures that would qualify for IFA, Indian Education for All expenditures, rather than ASA expenditures. So, and then also 42% of schools indicated that ASA funds are being spent on activities that are more aligned with the intention of IFA. The reason today that we are making sure everybody understands that there is a difference between IFA and ASA, or Indian Education for All, and American Indian Student Achievement Gap, is because we want districts, we want everybody, all stakeholders that are aligned to helping to contribute to decrease this gap, that they understand the difference between the 2 units, or the 2 purposes of the funding streams. ASA funding is meant to be spent specifically on and I guess I should make this really clear. Actually, there really isn't guidance on how ASA funding should be spent. And that's actually the work that we're doing with our research project, is to try to give more guidance to districts. But the goal of the funding is that we are using it in a way that is going to impact trauma, a way that's going to impact the things that we know are really contributing on the reservations to these kids that are, living in trauma, high poverty, kids that that are not having equal access, or I should say, that do not have equity to opportunity in education. And so that's how our funding is meant to be spent. What we found in this research of the expenditure is that 100 school districts were using their funding on field trips and guest speakers, that 54% were, or 54 districts were using it for professional development. We didn't really know because it doesn't dig deeper into what type of PD they're getting. That 56 were using it for staffing salaries and student support, that 101 were using it for general curriculum, materials, and supplies. A lot of this category had to do with purchasing multicultural books, multicultural curriculum materials, which is really good. That is something that districts should be spending IFA money on, because that's what it's for, is to help with implicit bias. And IFA is meant to help all students in the state of Montana understand how to, or understand what Montana tribes are, and then to work towards bias, decreasing bias in the state as far as American Indian students go, and just increasing the students' knowledge of what Montana tribes are, who they are, what they stand for, and the rich cultures that they hold. So with ASA funding, we really need them to be spending their funding on things that are pertaining to trauma and effects that are causing some of the achievement gaps. And then 58 districts are buying materials, supplies, events, like doing cultural focused things like powwows, and building teepees and doing a lot of art stuff, which is really good. But that really actually is a IFA expenditure too. And then general funds, they're using it for general funds. So as we're going ahead with the work at ASA, we found a lot of gaps going on. We know that within ESSA, there's an equity of promise that we have to fulfill. When you look at the ESSA plan, you can see that it's talking about providing districts that serve American Indian students with equity, and it's talking about serving American Indian students in a way that matches who they are. And so bringing in culture, language, providing wraparound services that are targeting the mental health and the trauma that's happening with our kids. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was a research project. I know I sound like I'm really into research. I'm sorry, I really love research. But the fact is there isn't enough research out there across the United States when it comes to American Indian students and how we can help them succeed. But one of the things that happens is when there is research, it's done up here at this level. We never go to the people that serve American Indian students, the people in the trenches that are working hard to keep the students afloat. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to ask them, what do you think the barriers are? And so we have a research project happening right now where the districts, we went to districts both on and off reservation, and we asked them, we went and did focus groups with them. We are developing a survey to send out. And then we're just looking at data across OPI. We have a gold mine as far as data goes, but we don't really use that data for anything yet as far as our American Indian students go, in a way that I think could really be impactful. And I'm not saying OPI does it, I'm saying within my unit, we are starting to do that, which I feel is going to be really impactful. And so we're going to look at all these assessments and all of the data for each district. And so one of the things that is really exciting that when we're looking and doing a data mine is we started to look at what's happening across the state. And so what we found is that on the statewide assessments in 2008, or sorry, I'm on the next slide. No, you could go on. So what we found with ACTs, we wanted to look at each district across the state. This is new data to me, so when I'm looking at this data, the dark blue is the across the state, American Indians across the state. And then with each different color, that's a specific district. So orange is looking at CMR, yellow is looking at Centennial, blue is looking at Polson, and green is looking at St. Ignatius. I just talked with my ASA team and the research team. We were looking at this data because we want to know, why is it that these districts in their ACT scores, why are they at a higher level than the rest of the state? And so that's what this graph is showing, is that these districts are doing something right. But that was the question that came up with our research team is, do they face the same, when you look at these districts, except for St. Ignatius, are all off the reservation. Is there a geographical component here that's helping them to be successful? Is it the dynamics of the reservations that is helping them to be successful? What is it? Is it their proximity to bigger cities, their proximity to having equal access for internet or equal access to opportunity? What is it? So that's the research we're doing. And you can go to the next slide, Julie. I'm almost done, guys. This is looking at the Sbac for 2018 and 19 for American Indian students. Again, the blue line is what I just showed you guys earlier as far as Sbac proficiency rates for American Indian students. The blue block is showing that. And this is the orange line is showing Central Heights Billings. Gray is showing Morningside School. And I'm sorry, I don't have my reading glasses on. Yellow is showing the Hellgate Elementary, and green is showing Hawthorne in Missoula. So this is Sbac 3rd through 8th grade showing the American Indian achievement. And so again, like what are these districts doing? Why are they higher than the average of the state? And what can we learn from them? Or is it something to do with their location, their geographic setting? Is there a difference between living on or off a reservation that's contributing? And so the questions my team came up with when we looked at this data, which I'm sure you guys have the same, this is all part of the research that we're doing. And I do have a preliminary report. You can go on to the next slide. I do have a preliminary report of our research, which is really exciting, but I have to leave a cliffhanger to get you guys back for the next, our next meeting on Thursday. And I will send you that report. It is actually really exciting because the districts that helped us with the research project, they really dug deep in their answers to our question. Our question was, what are the barriers that is contributing to the American Indian student achievement gap? And is there a difference between on reservation and off reservation? And that's the question. We have some preliminary data for you guys next week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lana, for that comprehensive review of the data. We want to really now open the floor to all of you for questions, comments, discussion. And Donnie is here to kind of help us facilitate that, and Lana, but the floor is all yours. So we want to just kind of get your reactions, your questions, your thoughts.
I have one, if I may, Julie and Lana. You're talking about some data collection and some research and stuff. What I would be interested in is, I see that you're looking at 2018, 2019 numbers there. And what I'd be interested in seeing is what type of impact that this past year has as far as participation. And just giving an example of why I'm interested is because of the participation rate on this online learning that has overtaken school districts. And one of my schools in my district has a 27% participation rate. And as of last month, I understand that those numbers have gone down farther. And then the second point I'd like to make is that when they put that language preservation in place in 2013, there has been some reports from the tribes, as well as putting in some materials that was required of their annual report after every biennium. And a lot of that information that the tribes has put in place were information that was that had tribes certification. So I think that it would probably be helpful if you go over to the Montana Historical Society, because in the basement there, each tribe has a whole host of curriculum material that can be used. And perhaps maybe that would be one avenue that you can start as far as collecting some of the curriculum information. And a lot of good information over there. And I did bring this to the attention to one of our meetings and prior sessions. So just those 2 points I'd like to bring up.
Thank you.
Excuse
Oh,
me.
go ahead.
I had a kind of a comment there. We're pulling all that data together and it's looking really good. But, in our situation where we're at as legislators, they would start formulating bills that would help close that gap. That's what we really need, to make that happen. I know that Sharon and Jonathan, Donovan, and the rest of the Native Caucus would really champion some of them bills through the Education Committee to make it happen. I don't know how long that would take or what we need to do, but I think that's where we need to be getting ready to move into that next level.
Yeah, and I think also too, Tyson, since each of us all have 2 bills, that is our deadline is probably sometime end of this month. And I think that if there's something that would be that we can put into place right away rather than later, and that way we can push it through now.
Just a question. This is Sharon. With the summary that you gave us, Lana, the question that comes to mind is, particularly with the districts that you're working with right now, and looking at the comparisons of the proficiency rates and the differences between the statewide and those particular schools, it would be interesting to dig a little further and look at then the curriculum, because that really makes, we know that, it's everything is curriculum driven. One of the things that I teach this literacy class for English language learners and to teach English language learners, let me say. And one of the things that the transition that occurs is that pre-K, K3, our focus is on teaching kids how to read. And then at 4th grade, and that's the curriculum. At 4th grade, then the curriculum shifts to reading to learn. And so with ELL kids, that's the challenge. That's the biggest obstacle. And so, so I would be interested to look to see if you're going to dig further down, what is the curriculum that they're using? Then what is the type of professional development that they're also implementing in those school districts? Because that would have some impact in terms of how are they teaching these children? How are they teaching these students? And then if you take a look at, and that's for 4th grade to 12th grade. And that this whole concept of, and that's, you know, we begin to compartmentalize where the curriculum really shifts. And so when children are already 3-4 years behind in their reading level, and so the focus now becomes reading to learn, and they are struggling readers, then of course they're going to be they're not going to be proficient. And so what are the, and so that's the question that you, to dig deeper curriculum wise, those are the 2 component parts. Because, and then the third component is what are they doing? This is where Donnie comes in. What are they doing to partner the family in order to loop it around? Because without the family being brought in, and that's the biggest struggle right now, is that the children are going to school virtually, but a lot of if they have access to the internet, that's the first challenge. The second challenge is oftentimes their parents are struggling themselves to be able to help these kids. And so how are we then, how are we looping in to provide the kind of assistance? And so that's where, you know, with Jonathan talking about the impacts of COVID, and we talked about this at dinner the other night. It's unfortunate. Hardin after the count date threw out 30 students in high school, just basically turned them out. Some of them have gone to other schools if they got picked up. It wasn't because they were delinquent. It was because they said they weren't interacting. And so in talking to some of the parents, they were saying that the school was not responsive to them as well. And so that was an issue. And they asked me what to do. And I said, you need to take this to your principal and then on to the superintendent. And so, and some have chosen to go to other schools. Others they're the dropouts. They're not in school. And so that's a conundrum that some of those students are in. And so I think the COVID impacts are going to really, it's going to be interesting to see. I know that we're not doing the standardized test, that's been waived, but what are we, you know, those are the impacts. Not only we talked about Lana trauma, that's there, but also academically, you know, that's that next challenge. What are they, especially with the older students that are struggling. So it would be interesting to see that. It would be to look at what type of curriculum those schools are using, what type of training those teachers are getting, and then how are they working with the parents and community.
Thank you, Representative, for the question. And I definitely agree that we do need to dig deeper on some of this data that we have. That is actually one of the areas that came out in our preliminary research results, is that the curriculum, the type of curriculums, and if they match our type of learners. And so that we will be developing that survey to dig a little bit deeper on whether or not their curriculums are matching who they're teaching. And then just again, to reiterate, definitely we do want to be able to look at the data that for 2019 to 2020 to look at how the impacts of COVID and remote learning has impacted students. You know, and we're kind of always a little bit behind a year because that's how our data works. But it's something that we definitely within my unit we're going to be digging into that deep and looking at how that affected students, and also the resiliency that they had, because there is a lot of resiliency stories that I'm hearing out there that I think we need to also help build upon with some of our other districts that may be struggling. And I wish I had the preliminary data for you, because you actually just laid it out right there, Sharon. You talked about the 5 themes that emerged basically all in what you said.
And Representative Paraguay, I was gonna kind of chime in on some of the things you said, and it will come down to the relationships through ESSA, the relationships and the consultation with the tribe, because you brought up a topic that is very frustrating to me, and I bet everyone in here. Our schools really care about count day because they get a big chunk of money. But once that day's passed, they seem to forget about our youth. And that's where, if we do this correctly and work with the school districts, educate our tribal councils and those in those positions to understand the rights that they may have and a say of what a school district can do, and keep the focus on our youth. You know, get over each other in the disconnect of our schools and oftentimes tribal councils, and keep a focus on youth. And they need to keep those students in there. I mean, I think everyone in here knows that, and it is very frustrating because we have discussed trainings for parents, and that's across the board. Teaching Google Classroom to parents is, I mean, we're just in this pretty interesting place. And we have that youth advisory group that I was on right before this meeting. And it's very interesting that I think the youth have a lot of say. And if we talk about innovation, they're bringing up Discord server accounts that, who knows, why couldn't we run some of our educational systems through some of these ideas that they have? So it's a very interesting time, but I hear you loud and clear. And I think if we do this correctly, we'll start to produce better success for our American Indian youth. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello, Representative Windy Boy.
Hey, is Elsie on?
I don't think
Earth to Elsie. Earth to Elsie.
I don't think so.
My
Oh, okay.
apologies, Representative Wendy Boy. She has a dual commitment right now, so she's listening, but she's got someone in the office at the moment.
Oh, okay. I have a question that's kind of off the beaten path here. There's $800 million that's coming down to the state on this recent federal monies that came down, and I understand there's like 400 and some odd million that's going to OPI, or 40 some million that's going to OPI. Yeah, what are the plans? What's OPI's plans of helping us get some of that money our way?
Yeah, well, what's fascinating is that the meeting she's on right now, Representative, is actually unpacking those dollar numbers right now. We do know that that number that's going to come to K-12 education is closer to $170 million this time. And we just got the guidance today. So we're working on that, and we will get back to you just as soon as we can when we've got more detail.
Okay, well, just let me know, because we're going to be listening to that in my joint subcommittee on education. And if there's anything that I can do on that part, and I understand that some of those, the language in there is specific. So
Okay.
I'd like to find out what those are.
Absolutely. I will put a note here for the superintendent to get in touch with you. Right now, she's meeting with our agency finance experts to get her head wrapped around exactly what's coming our way. So your timing is perfect. Thank you.
I just wanted to add one more thing that I think, because what I heard Representative Running Wolf say is, which is so weird to call him that. What I heard him say and what I hear you guys all saying is that what could you do as legislators to help close this gap? And you know, and that's why we're doing the research project. I feel like I keep saying, we're doing this research project, but we already know what the needs are. We do know, those of us that have worked on reservations and with the students, we know that mental health issues, trauma, and the lack of access to their own culture and self-identity are really predominantly the issues that we're facing with our kids. So I know formulating these bills that you're doing, anything that supports our districts and that it's tangible supports that's providing mental health services to our districts, that's what they need. The gap is there because our students are in such high levels of trauma that instruction and academics is the farthest thing from districts' minds, and the students and the parents and the communities. And so they need help. Districts need help. They need mental health help. And I just want to tell you about one district quickly, Heart Butte School District. They are the one district in the state that realized that if they didn't get their kids the mental health services they needed, that they would never see the gap close or any improvements. And so they took it upon themselves by using all their funding that they have, and actually went to the tribe and got $800,000 more of COVID money. And they're building a mental health facility that's actually owned and operated by the district that is going to support their youth. So that's something really innovative. And so anything that you see coming across your desk that has to do with mental health services, make sure that there's something in there directly for American Indian students.
Yeah, that's good to know, Lana, because as I understand, reading some of the information, and I think come across Sharon's desk as well, is that out of that new federal money that's coming down, what the superintendent is talking about, I recall there was some mental health stuff that was also included on that. So maybe that would be an avenue to pursue.
And Representative Windy Boy, we are also applying for a continuation of our wraparound grant, and that's specific in pretty much every community in our tribal nations. And it's kind of a very high level support system for youth, but it's very powerful. And I think the appreciation I have for these meetings, I just can't even express, because as we get to sharing and talking about such things within Lana and I's team, we have a lot of experiences, and a lot of it is failures. But I think working with you guys, I am of the mindset that we come together and have these discussions, and things will start to pop up that we can really get some action created. So I just appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you. And also, it's good to see Misty Cool here. And I'd like to visit with you a little bit more as well. Congratulations too.
I have a question. Misty's on the line.
Yes.
I'm here, Representative.
Hey, Misty, there's a couple of things I'm not too sure. I didn't get a chance to get a rundown on the governor's budget proposal. What we've been discussing earlier hearing, have you taken a look at the budget, and is any part of that relevant to what we're discussing?
I was just announced yesterday. I have not taken a look at the budget. I will do that immediately. Also, it would Glenn Oppel, Kurt Almy. I will put you in touch with him because I know that he would be able to answer any questions you have right off the top of his head.
Okay, maybe we can have him on next week's call, because he's the budget director, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that there's probably some flexibility that the administration can use within this. And like I say, there's a lot of issues that we have that we want to bring it forward, that we need funding for as well.
Thank you, Representative Windy Boy. That's a great example of feedback from all of you of what you'd like to hear in these. When we're laying the calendar out, we have 21 opportunities to come together on Thursdays throughout the session. So keep them coming. We're happy to facilitate those requests.
Okay, well, anyways, I want to get on another note too, on this marijuana revenues. I have a bill that's I'm trying to carve out 8.7% of the future revenues, and those numbers aren't going to come down until probably end of 21. But and the reason why I put 8.7% is because that's the percentage of the population of natives across the state, but that's not even including the needs that our members who live in the cities for work, education, whatever. And if I'm not mistaken, when we had a call earlier on this afternoon that the governor had 2 areas that they're going to use funding for. That's economic development plus another one for treatment or whatever. And no doubt that's probably just a wish list. But I'd like to, being that we're in the process right now, Sharon and I are in some key positions. She has general government section A and I'm on E. And so it would be easier for us if we can get the support and get those monies into joint subcommittees rather than on the floor or move it over to the Senate, which will be a lot tougher. And so once we start moving around some money here on the joint subcommittee levels, I think it'll take us a lot further down the road. And I agree, with what's his name? Wetzel was saying about the wraparound, and I've been harping on wraparound since the early 2000s. And and I say this because of experience, and Tyson knows what I'm talking about as a tribal leader, is that there's a lot of issues that we deal with on the local level that affects one another. For example, HHS and the school systems, as 20, 30 years ago when I had some nephews and nieces that were going to school, they were labeled as ADHD, and the schools, how they would address it is pump them up with a bunch of Ritalin and throw them in the corner. And I think that with these wraparound services, and I always tell the administrators from the school districts is that they kick out kids. And I use this as example, I always say, and it's more than likely the same with schools across the state. When I went to one of my schools in my district, my principal, when I asked him, what do you need? He said, I can't tell you what I need. He said, but what I can tell you what I'm faced with. And he handed out and showed that he had 23 students that were, if their next move was to be kicked out, basically expelled. And what was sad about it was half the high school basketball team was on there. I know how that is. If you kick off the basketball team, we'll have an uproar. And then what he said, and then in the other hand, in the other drawer, he pulled out 33 students, and where these 23 are, these 33 students, next step will be where the 23 are. So you're looking at 56 students right there in front of us. And because of the discipline action policies that's in place right now, it's kind of doing us an injustice to the student, because once they get kicked out, the requirement for them to stay in school, we'll go to the next school about 15 miles down the road, and they'll probably get kicked out again, and they'll go to Havre, and it's even more harsher there, and they'll probably get kicked out again. And so I told him, I said, well, if you address some of the issues, go to the student's home, you're probably going to be witnessing child abuse, drugs, alcohol, all of the social ills that happen. And then that takes away the students' concentration level on the schoolwork, and they go into survival mode. And that's when some of them students, they'll just stuff their pockets with food just to make sure that their little brothers and sisters are able to eat. And so I think that's the, that would be a strong argument for what Donnie's talking about on all of these wraparound services, because we need to address the kids' needs that they're living from day to day. Did I get cut off?
Yeah, you're Jonathan, you're right on, because the state tribal relations, this interim, one of the issues that we talked about was the homelessness of students, not just only Native Americans, but students in general, and looking at the issue with the Native American students, the homelessness that's there. And that's hidden because it's families that are taking each other in. And then with the COVID spread, that's partly because of it, because we have 4 families living together in a small HUD house, and so the COVID issue on our reservations, that's part of what exacerbated that, the situations. But there is homelessness. We think of families by themselves in their own homes, and that's a luxury on the reservation, because number one, there's not enough homes available. Economically depressed areas, they don't have the money to be able to rent or that type of thing. So homelessness is something that is hidden. It's there. And then we have the runaways. Those were the 2 issues that we were looking at. And we weren't able to delve further into it, but I think that's the other thing that's going on. And I think that with the couch surfing, as some of the students call it, where students themselves are moving from home to home. And going home with their friends and family taking them in. And so that's also hidden by the fact that these, again, families will take them in. And so part of it is there is the peer pressure and the peer itself, the interaction, the bullying and all of that is still there. But I think those are all tied, and then we have, again, with the COVID now, and we were talking about this earlier this week, is that then we also have then unresolved grief that's going on, particularly in our Native communities. And so that's the other issue, is that, how are we going to help the community, the families, the students themselves be able to move forward and to deal with the issue of grief and to have closure, and also to figure out then how are they going to do well when they're struggling in school. And so these are all, it's a tsunami. I hate to say it, but COVID brought in a tsunami where we have struggling students, and now we have, we have to, and I'd be interested, Donnie, in looking at what some of the students themselves are saying to do. What are their solutions? Because it's about them at the end of the day. The adults are not doing a good job right now. We need to see what the students themselves are saying, that what kind of innovation would help them move forward.
Yeah, and you hit the point on the nail on the head there, Sharon, because that's the same thing that I've been hearing. A couple sessions ago, I had a page, and after the session, that she had a summer job, and that was what she was doing. She was doing some surveys and stuff, and that's what. And you know how big Hayes, Montana is. It's not very big, and she counted 100 homeless students. And so, these are the issues that a lot of times we miss out on here, because a lot of times we in Helena here and also in DC, we think we have the solution for the problem that's on the local level, but we're way off on left field here. what the real issues going on. So you're right, Sharon, that we do need to identify what the real deal is going on here.
And thank you, representatives. If I may, yes, we've been having these discussions for a while, and at the local tribal level, it's often been brought up for a safe house or potentially even student housing for students, because we're at that point, unfortunately. And and I visited with Julie and Cheryl, I think even on with the money coming down from COVID, those foundational pieces like the digital divide issues of lack of internet in our communities, and in this housing issues, and just our youth in unhealthy homes. Those are big pieces that if we took a run at that, we could really make some change. But it's big. I understand that, but I agree with both of you on that.
Yeah, and I think that the issue is, if we take it one issue at a time, we're not going to fix this overnight. But if we address it step by step, I think we'll probably get a lot more done that way. And Lana, when you're doing some of your research, it sounds like you're doing, what I'm witnessing and what I've been seeing is you're doing some amazing work under the OPI as well as Donnie. And I think that some of the things that are more tangible with us within the next month, let's put something together, because we all have 2 bill drafts left by the end of the month. I'm willing to take a run at it.
Definitely. Thank you, Representative Wendy Boy. I definitely believe that the work that we're doing right now, the fact that I sat in a classroom for years with students that were facing everything that you guys talked about, it's still in my heart, and that's what drives my work. And I know Donnie's the same way. So what our American Indian students are facing on the reservations and off the reservations is, like Sharon said, it's a tsunami on top of a tsunami with COVID. But we really do have to start making some differences and changes. And that is why we were doing the research, is really not that we didn't know what the problems were, but we just need to be able to focus everybody, all the way from the legislators and bills that are out there, that are going out there in money and funding, but all the way down to all the stakeholders within the districts. And so I'm really excited about what we're gonna all do together. And yeah, I think we should sit down and just look at what are the tangible things, short-term goals that we could do, and then what are our long-term goals that we need to focus on. Our kids are in trauma, and that's the bottom line. That's what we have to really start focusing on. And I'm just gonna throw this last part out here, because me and Donnie made a pact that anytime we had an opportunity to talk about what the real problems are on our reservations, sexual abuse is one of the main components that we got to get help. We got to break cycles on our reservations. And so we need everybody to get on. That has to be a goal of all of ours, is that we're going to do everything we can to start breaking those cycles, because that's one of the main components that's causing all of the statistics that we have out there.
Many elders have always said that's the core pain of our people.
Mhm.
And just sharing that out. And I know we're over time, but I think of these things, and I know Sarah's there. I think of this housing or some of these units, it could be a career development of some sort, that our youth could be building these homes or something.
Yeah.
Because we have these ideas, and it creates jobs, it creates a paycheck, or it helps build your community for you. So all of these things are in our heads, and we could talk for hours. So again, I'm very thankful to have the opportunity.
And please let us know what you guys want to talk about in these meetings. I don't want to be presenting a lot of data to you guys, or the data I do present, I definitely want it to be what you want it to see. And like I said, we have a gold mine here at OPI, and I have the most incredible data team and ASA team that can bring you so much information. Anything that you guys want to know about, we probably can do it now. Cross my fingers on that.
Yeah, what you've been presenting, Lana, is really helpful because I think that will help our argument be a lot more stronger when we do presentations.
Well, thank you all very much for your time. We went over a little bit, but I hate to cut these conversations off when they're going so well. This will be recorded. We'll send out the slides as well as the recording as soon as it's done and ready for you. Thank you, Tara, for hanging in with us. And save this Zoom link because this will be the same link for every Thursday throughout the session. You will continue to get reminders with the agenda the day before each Thursday, but every Thursday at 4 during the session, right here on this link, we'll see you back. Thank you.
I have one more, if I may.
Go ahead, Representative.
One more suggestion that perhaps maybe Lana and Donna, if you guys could go over to Montana Historical Society in the basement there, you'll find a whole wealth of information from the tribes with their stamp of approval, and that would be a good start for getting some of the curriculum out to the schools on the IFA stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Representative. I definitely am going to do that. There's no need for it to be in a basement somewhere.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, later.
Bye, everybody.
Yep.